We had a family in West Texas. We grew up in Temple, Texas.
I luxuriate in the lustriousness of our discourse.
What's that?
They always just like. Doesn't there always that stereotype Texan man like speaks really beautifully with really long words? The illustrious nature of which we shall digress will forever pertain.
That's not Texas. That's more like
Louisiana.
Louisiana.
On the bayou.
Oh, that's up and
We'll
down.
go up on my boat and we'll ride and play
Now
poker.
you going,
I'm going.
Cletus from Simpsons. Hey, Ma, come out here.
Where the hell have you been?
I've been in Geneva.
Yeah.
And
somewhere else. Did you go somewhere else?
where did I go somewhere else? No, not since we've recorded. I've been a bit of a mess just around.
For work, again.
For
we
work,
need to
yeah.
tell me. You're not just having holidays.
I was filming in Geneva,
Right.
which is beautiful.
Yeah,
It's really
looks
beautiful,
great.
like by the lake, and it's just
Lake
there.
Geneva.
The Lake Geneva, yeah, and it's so nice. But I do think you have to be a millionaire to enjoy it. Like, it was fine because I wasn't paying,
Yeah.
but the cost of some of the food and coffee
Sure.
there, it's like £30 for a burger.
Right.
The steak is like 70.
They just know who's coming to Lake Geneva then.
And like, I had a lovely time. I was filming in like very fancy hotels doing like promo stuff. And some of the hotel rooms, even if I was someone who had like 50 million in the bank, some of the hotel rooms are like $5,000 a night. I'm just thinking,
no bed's that comfortable.
no.
No hotel is that soundproof.
I went into this, I was filming in this one room called the Grace Kelly Suite. And it had paintings of, pictures, of Grace Kelly, and it's where she used to stay and do all these things. It was very nice, but it was almost like, for like $5,000.
And
I'm not the market. Yeah. Oh, sorry, my mic a bit wonky.
your mic was a bit wonky, so
sorry.
just strange out there. Yeah, I've never been to Switzerland, but I'd like to. And your pictures did make it look really nice.
Yeah, there's lots of nice chocolate, lots of nice watches.
You're really just reeling out. Do you actually go? Because you're just saying all the stereotypes.
Honestly, it
Cuckoo
really is.
clocks.
On the main promenade
Army
of the lake
knives.
is like Patek Philippe, Rolex,
Oh, really?
Cartier.
Wow.
They've got massive storefronts, like bigger than what would be an Oxford Street storefront. Just huge, glitzy, glamorous.
Wow.
And then it's just
If it was like Oxford Street, did it have loads of American candy stores there as well?
no, the money laundering,
The money
US
laundering,
candy
empty
things.
American
Yeah.
candy stores. It's
For
a
like
very
£9
specific
for
London reference.
Yeah,
That,
they're fairly. I know they've always kind of been around, but those have like properly taken over in the last 5 years. Just taken
and I
up
think
all the space.
specifically post-pandemic as well.
Yeah, it's like the luggage, the I Heart London
Yes.
badges,
Yeah.
things to smoke weed with.
Yes.
And then just
Yeah, the vape
so
shots,
much
American candy.
and really big packets that are like £14 for a thing of what are they called? Lucky
Stars.
Lucky Stars,
I don't
something like
know.
that,
Lucky
yeah.
Charms, maybe.
Yeah.
Have you seen the TikTok about the guy he's Scottish and he does that skit about what shops you should put in an airport?
No.
And he's
oh
like,
yeah.
He's like, I'm just thinking which ones we should put in. It's like
WH Smith?
WH Smith.
Yeah.
Oh, really? The shop that no one goes into?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any others?
Is
Yeah. WH Smith. You want to put 2 in? At least. 2 by the
7.
gate? Yeah. 2 at the entrance? Oh, man, it's funny.
Very good.
But when you're talking about Geneva just then, it reminds me, because I've come back from Copenhagen.
Yes.
Which
I've been
a
waiting to
bit
ask you,
like,
how was it?
I guess, imagine a bit like Switzerland, which is everything's incredibly, great, but a little bit expensive.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about Copenhagen and Denmark is that it's basically a much better version of the UK. There are less people. Everything works. Everything is clean. Everything is done to incredibly high quality and high standard. Denmark and Copenhagen are often top the list of happiest places and best places to live in the world.
Really?
Right? I think they are the happiest country in the
Do you feel
world.
that there's a calm energy about people engaging? Because
it's so
like,
good.
I love London, but there is a sense that everyone's kind of just
Aggy.
a little bit
I hate
hunched
it.
over,
Yeah.
even just in the energy between exchanges. And I go to other cities which feel very busy,
Yeah.
but the people are sort of gliding through.
Well, the thing is about Copenhagen, to London's defence, is that Copenhagen has a population of like 500,000, and the whole of Denmark has a population of about 6 million, which is less than the population of London.
Yes.
So they can get away with being like, hey, this is nice and easy. And I'm like, yeah, that's like one borough. You've got one borough's worth of population.
Yeah.
But
what did you do there? How did you spend your time?
I just did. Well, here's the thing. you know, normally when you go somewhere on holiday, like let's say Florence, and you go, wow, this is an amazing place, but I wouldn't necessarily want to live here, right?
Yes.
When we get to Copenhagen, it's like, I would love to live here. It's evident that the quality of life is incredibly high and wonderful. But as a tourist, it takes a little bit more kind of breaking into. First of all, I mean, I came to Copenhagen during this extraordinary heat wave we've been having in the UK, which is like, you know, his record-breaking heat wave. And I get to Copenhagen, it's like 18 degrees maybe at best. It's technically like, on the longitude, it's like, or latitude, it's higher than Scotland, or more north than Scotland, right? So it's like a bit windy, wrap up in the evenings, a little bit of rain, a little bit. We got there after their heat wave and just before their other one. It did clear up. But so we got there and it was a bit cold and it's a bit rainy and, you know, it gets cold in the evenings. And Copenhagen's very flat as well. So it's very, very hard to get your bearings. It's one of the flattest countries on earth.
Right.
So you can't go, oh, there's that landmark over there. You're just in the trenches of the buildings.
Yeah.
But I just want to say it was just very nice. Everyone speaks, not just everyone speaks English. Everyone speaks impeccable English.
Really?
It's not like I think I can help you to go to the you know, like if you get in Paris. It's like
good afternoon.
It's like hello, you would like to go to the art museum. That's down there. And I know as a tourist I shouldn't expect people to speak English. I'm not saying that, but just being confronted, it makes you want to speak better English.
Yes,
Hearing it, you're like, oh my goodness. Like I said, everything is just incredibly high quality. Nothing is
good food.
People, good. Everything is good quality. It costs a lot, like £5 for a cup of coffee, kind of good quality.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah. But and everyone you meet, like even at like the bus terminal or the train station, the people who work there aren't like, you know, in the UK it's just like half-assed CBA. There it was like, yes, I would love to help you. This is my job, and I'm very happy to do it. And when this shift is over, I go home to my
better
family.
pay than us.
I'm sure
average.
the quality of life on the whole looks great. So I'm moving to Denmark.
They pay 70% tax, but everything's just included.
Yes, I think that is one of those places. Yeah, very high. Yeah.
They live full board
in the giant Danish hotel. But yeah, so thumbs up for Denmark. Thumbs up for Denmark. Any Danish listeners, good on you. So James, a couple of weeks ago, we ran through some of the directors that have been involved in the MCU, right? Marvel Cinematic Universe. We were kind of covering the kind of first half of the films they put out there, showing that of all that Marvel's output, there are actually some really interesting directors that have been working on their drawing on experience from lots of different things, TV, bringing in different quirks and skills, you know, Shane Black bringing in the kind of witticism, all that kind of stuff. And so, well, there we go. It's a siren day today. Let's finish the job.
We split it into two
We
parts.
split it into two.
Like Avengers.
We
At the
got
end of the last
to
one, we like disappeared.
Yeah, and now we're back for
back.
part two. So we got up to, I think, Ant-Man with Peyton Reed. And we're going to just finish now covering the remaining films in the MCU and the remaining directors. Now, a lot of the films that figure into Phase 3 and Phase 4 we won't talk about because they have the same directors as we talked about.
We covered them.
We covered the Russos, you know, things like that. So, and we covered James Gunn and etc. So, let's run through the remaining directors that we have for the MCU, right? Okay, so 2016, Doctor Strange, Scott Derrickson. Now, if I said Scott Derrickson to you, does that ring any bells?
Nope.
Me neither. But what I think is quite interesting is Scott Derrickson actually has a background in like film horror. Things like The Exorcism of Emily Rose, Sinister, and Deliver Us from Evil.
Oh yeah, Sinister's...
Are they all like Blumhouse production kind of...
Yeah,
the films
James
you see,
Wan produced.
Yes, exactly. Those films you kind of see come in and, okay, that was certain ilk. He also directed that Keanu Reeves remake of The Day the Earth Stood Still, which apparently wasn't very good. Anyway, so Scott Derrickson comes in and he does Doctor Strange. Now, I know that he had a kind of different vision. He wanted Ethan Hawke to be Doctor Strange. And he worked with Ethan Hawke on Sinister, and he worked with Ethan Hawke again on his latest release, which is The Black Phone. You might have seen that advertised with the mask.
Yes.
Yeah, again, another one of those like Blumhouse kind of
Ethan
horror
Hawke eventually
films.
did get up with Marvel in Moon Knight.
Yes, and Ethan Hawke did get eventually back in Moon Knight, yes. I would have loved to have seen Ethan Hawke's Doctor Strange, but I understand Benedict Cumberbatch, much bigger talent.
With his batch of cucumbers for his cucumber patch.
Is that the little nursery rhyme you've made about that?
It's a little tongue twister you do for your buzz and your comes.
Okay. So anyway, I mean, I don't know if we see a lot of like his horror roots in Doctor Strange. Not as much as we would with Sam Raimi in the second one.
It's definitely there.
I just think it's kind of I mean, the most interesting thing for me in Doctor Strange, the first one, was the sort of kaleidoscopic visuals.
Yes.
I don't know how much of him he had to be involved with that. He was slated to direct the second one, and then he got moved off the project. I don't know why, over like creative differences. You know, it does happen
was
a bit.
that, wasn't there?
Maybe it was the change in direction. I mean, as we sort of talked about when we did Thor last week and we covered Doctor Strange 2. Doctor Strange 2 is teased at the end of the first one as being all about Chiwetel Ejiofor, and it's like they went, no, actually Doctor Strange 2 is going to be all about the multiverse, and that thing we teased is not really going to be relevant, is it?
You know, there's this element of directors who are part of the MCU. There's such a intense burden because they have to get the characters from A to B in this film because the story goes like this. There is also this sense that every time we watch one, I don't feel like the grand story was really addressed that much in the film.
Yes.
So I always wonder how much they need to toe the line because, my main impression of Doctor Strange was the thing that made it distinctive from everything else was kaleidoscopic visuals, Inception-esque, folding of the world.
And fantastic,
really sort of set it apart from everything else. But I don't finish Doctor Strange and go, we're at the next point in the story.
Yeah.
It was its own adventure.
It's like, here he is lined up for Infinity War, and he'll be in there. Also, do you think Doctor Strange is better when he's in other people's films? Like when he's in Spider-Man, when he's in Avengers.
He's great in Infinity War, I think.
Yeah. But when he actually has his own role, anyway. Okay, so after that you have...
It's like protecting your reality, douchebag.
So then you have Guardians of the Galaxy with James Gunn, which we covered last week. Spider-Man Homecoming. Spider-Man is taken back from Sony, and in 2017 we get the first... Well, I know we had Spider-Man come up in... Civil War, but the first
last
MCU
minute big deal between Sony and Marvel, wasn't it? Yeah.
The first MCU Sony Spider-Man film with Tom Holland is directed by John Watts. Now, John Watts, most of the directors we've talked about have had long careers and drawn on quite a lot of films. He'd only done 2 indie films, right? Called Clown and Cop Car. Clown, I don't recognize anyone on the IMDb, but it's about a guy who gets a clown suit for his kid's birthday party, but the clown suit is possessed.
Okay,
it's like kind of a bit like the horror films that Scott Derrickson was doing. It's kind of one of those. And then Cop Car, which is this kind of, I've not seen it, but with Kevin Bacon, 2 joyriders steal his cop car, and he's the sheriff, and he has to kind of discover them. And then 2 years later, he's doing Far From Home, Homecoming. God, they're all homes.
Which that was such a clear... It's interesting you'd mentioned that sort of indie film background because Homecoming was such a clear... conscious effort to not do Spider-Man in New York swinging around saving the city and being set there. I think because everyone was going, what, another Spider-Man reboot?
Yes.
You had to make it visually different. You had to make it feel different. The tone had to change. Yeah. And I like Homecoming. I think
I think it's probably, in my opinion, I think it's the strongest of the 3. I know you like No Way Home.
Yeah, all 3 of them are very different, and I sort of appreciate that they've mixed it up a bit and didn't just do it swinging around New York. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me now that you say he came from a different indie movie background. They probably didn't want to have action movie director come in.
No, I think
had a smaller hometown feel.
Yeah, I think that. Look, I liked Homecoming. I didn't mind Far From Home, and I thought No Way Home was fine as well. But I appreciate that I wasn't as invested in the sort of callbacks as everyone else.
Yes.
But there was something particularly in the last 2 with the direction that I found a little bit limp and a little bit lame. And I know that these directors are under the weight of a whole Marvel thing, but the scene in No Way Home where you've got all the baddies in the cells and they're just sort of talking to them one by one, and what's your name? Blah, 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 blah. And what did you do? It just felt really flat to me. And the first half of Far From Home, I was like, this is a bad film. These villains, the water monster, the fire monster, and then obviously it's revealed there's a twist, and I was like, okay, now it gets a bit more interesting. But
it had a lot of heart, which I think kept Far From Home going.
Yes,
I think that the Spider-Man films lack a sense of huge jeopardy and scale, and that's on purpose. And I think he's like, I'm just saving cats from trees, anything to help. But what I think they do have is when Tom Holland's doing Spidey stuff, he's constantly being like, "Oh my god, okay, just put you over here," and that's sort of really heartwarming to be like, he is literally figuring out how to be a Superman, and we already know the Spider-Man he will eventually become.
Sure.
But isn't it nice to look into the brain of someone who literally just cannot wait to get started, and is also terrified and actually really bad at doing the things that matter?
Yeah, I agree. That's a really good point actually. Anyway, so John Watts next, after he's done this Spider-Man trilogy, what's he doing next? He's doing an untitled George Clooney and Brad Pitt film, reuniting the Ocean's 11 duo. It follows two lone wolf fixers who are assigned to the same job. That's all I know about it from IMDb.
Julia Roberts will be in it.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
Did you see the trailer for George Clooney and Julia Roberts' sort of comedy?
I haven't, no.
Because they were filming in Australia.
Right.
Yeah, it's there.
Okay.
I just always want to see George Clooney and stuff.
Okay, so then we have Thor Ragnarok, which brings Taika Waititi into the brand reboot of Thor. Look, we've talked about Taika Waititi and Thor a lot in our Thor Love and Thunder review. Go check that out. All I want to say is when talking about Taika Waititi, as ever, is please check out Boy, which is a film he made in 2010. Really love it. I don't think it was his first film. I think his first film was a thing called Eagle versus Shark. But Boy, it's great. Hunt for the Wilder People is great too. Yeah. Jojo Rabbit is fine. I think a lot of people hated Jojo Rabbit. I think I kind of misunderstood it. My biggest problem with Jojo Rabbit, it was not necessarily the film, it was the way it was marketed, and they kept saying that it was a satire.
Yeah.
And it's not a satire. It's just not. That's not what the humor is in it. It's not like the producers. It's not like we're going to skew the bureaucracy of the Nazis. We're not going to. No, it's everything is aloof and buffoonery. It's not an actual satire.
It has larger than life performances at the centre, but what it deals with is not satire at all.
It's not a satirical point. That really bothered me.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not the producers or something like that. Anyway, so go check out Boy. But
just reiterate, because if people haven't listened to that, Ragnarok very much completely rebooted Thor, completely rewrote the entire tone and voice of that character.
Very successful.
And very much needed and very successful. And I think after that, people were, as we said, it was a James Gunn influence for the comedy in the beginning, but it has leaned furthermore into that style of comedy, that style of setup, punchline.
And he is the leading in terms of like celebrity director of the MCU.
Yeah.
Like he is the one that goes on the talk shows. Like he's the most involved director I find on the interview circuit. Most of them, even the Russos are quite shy and
And it's the first director who I feel like his voice really bled into the performances.
Yes.
Like if you've watched his style of comedy, if you've seen like What We Do in the Shadows, you can tell that kind of the awkward pauses came straight into Thor Ragnarok.
So, Taika Waititi's got a lot of projects. He produces a lot of stuff. He appears in a lot of stuff as an actor, but his next directing gig is called Next Goal Wins. It comes out in 2023. It's an adaptation of the 2014 British documentary, which is the story of the American Samoa soccer team who suffered the worst loss in World Cup history, losing to Australia 31-0 in 2001, right? It's got an interesting cast. It's got Elizabeth Moss, Rhys Darby, who's works for Taika Waititi a lot, so does Rachel House, Will Arnett, and he's back, Michael Fassbender.
Oh, where the hell has Michael Fassbender been?
I know. So he's
I think he's had kids, but
I'm sure he got married to Alicia Vikander. So great. That I'm looking forward to that. That'll be funny. That seems that film where like the humor is appropriate and like that feels like a very Taika Waititi story. So I'm looking forward to watching that.
And he's got a Star Wars trilogy to do. I don't know if he's signed on for 3, but he's
doing
that.
I haven't that.
He's talked about it in interviews.
Next Goal Wins is like in the can, but you've got the Star Wars thing coming up because he did that thing with Natalie Portman.
Yes, he did the thing with Natalie Portman, but he's talked about, people have been asking him like, what are you going to do? And obviously he can't say what he's going to do, but he's made a very clear distinction, saying, I spoke to the Star Wars people who are in charge of protecting the story, and he started throwing around ideas, and he realized, I don't want to do a master's in Star Wars for the amount of research I'd have to do to write a story. So I'm just going to do something completely new.
Nice.
He's like, I don't know more about this than the fans do, and I'm going to be called out for being ignorant for trying to make something that touches anything that's happened. So I'll just do something completely different.
Nice. I like that. That's what it needs.
Refreshing. I don't know how good it's going to be, but I'm glad that he's just going to go, new slate, no more Skywalkers. Let's go.
Next director. In 2018, we get Black Panther, which is, of course, directed by Ryan Coogler. One of the biggest films of all time.
I remember Jimmy Kimmel at the Oscars was being like, it doesn't matter what we talk about because Black Panther is destroying us all in the box office right now.
So Ryan Coogler had made kind of 2 prominent films before. Fruitvale Station with Michael B. Jordan, which is the story of a guy who was killed by police on New Year's Eve, I think in 2009, and it's about his last day alive. It was the last day of his life. I haven't seen that, but it's been on like my Netflix watch list for such a long time. And Michael B. Jordan's one that kind of launched him and made him aware to people. That Chronicle and
Creed.
And that was Ryan Coogler's next film, Creed. The Rocky Balboa brand reboot, which I quite like. Was
that 2018 or
that was 2015 for Creed?
Yes, before, right?
And then Creed 2 came out in 2018, but not directed by Ryan Coogler because Ryan Coogler is busy directing Black Panther.
Right.
Black Panther is fine, but for me it's fine. But I recognise like it's loved by so many people, and I'm like, yeah, it's okay. It's not for me, but whatever. It's literally, it's not for me.
I didn't like the CG fight at the end.
With the
Too
rhinos.
CG.
Yeah.
No, like when
the
Michael
train.
Jordan and Chadwick
God,
Boseman are just like in a
Yeah.
screen mess, just punching each other. Punches didn't hit, didn't land.
So
Should thud. I want to hear a thud.
Yeah.
I want to see skin ripple.
So Ryan Coogler's directing and producing a lot of interesting projects as well. Really interesting guy. His next film, because this is the thing. Previously we were talking about directors who made films like 10 years ago. We're talking about Captain America, the first
Yeah.
one. We're at the point now where the directors have kind of finished their Marvel projects. Like, okay, what's next? What am I gonna springboard into? So obviously Ryan Coogler, Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever is coming out later this year.
And he's doing that.
Yeah, he's done that.
So that'll be shot now, right? Or be shooting.
I'm like,
huge.
sorry. So Ryan Coogler's next film is called Wrong Answer. It's about a math teacher in Atlanta, USA, who is scandalized when he looks to get funding for his school by altering his students' test scores. Only one person in the cast so far, which is Michael B. Jordan, who he's worked with on all of his projects so far. So great. I love a good director.
Scorsese, De
Do you know what?
Niro.
I love a good director-actor relationship, and that's something maybe we can explore in another episode
Yes.
about best partnerships between on-screen and off-screen.
I reckon Kaluuya and Jordan Peele is another one that's
Danny
being
Kaluuya,
developed,
yeah. Interesting. So looking forward to Nope as well. By the way, if you're an American listener, it's already
The
been
reviews
released
are
for you
out.
guys, but for UK, it's
I don't
been
think it's
pushed
coming out
back
till mid-August?
Mid-August, yeah.
Bear with
Madness.
us. We are
Madness.
definitely going to watch it. Can't wait.
Okay, after Ryan Coogler, you get a couple of other people returning, Russo's, Peyton Reed, and then you get Infinity War and Ant-Man and the Wasp, which are directed by directors we've already talked about, and then you get Captain Marvel in 2019, which is directed by Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck. Now, these are, when we talked about John Watch, like, Spider-Man drawing heavily on an indie film director, these guys are proper indie film directors, which I always think is strange that they're doing something like Captain Marvel then.
Yeah.
And it might be why the fact that Captain Marvel didn't land for a lot of people.
It was fine.
Yeah, it was fine, but it lacked a certain direction and a certain sense of like what it wanted to be and what it was.
Also, I wished it hadn't come out the time it did. It was in between Infinity War and Endgame, and I thought the
Yes.
ending of Infinity War was such a good
Yes.
little period stop. I wish they had just let everything breathe
Yeah.
and then come back with Endgame. Like, you have my attention. You have the whole
I know,
world's
but she was
attention.
because she was in Endgame.
I know,
Yeah, I
but
know.
you could have done that before.
Also, when Captain Marvel was being marketed, it looked very much like it was just playing up the same things that Wonder Woman had done 2 years before.
Yes.
And Wonder Woman had come in, been very successful, and it was like, okay.
It felt like one of those random films you got before the MCU started, like the way in which it was presented.
Yes. Origin story,
I
yeah.
remember I was like, I'm really in. Like, Infinity War's happening, and I was in an office working, and Captain Marvel was out, and I was busy and hadn't found time to see it, and I was like, should I? Shouldn't I? And then the guy sitting across from me, also into film, he had gone to see it, and I was like, how is it? And he's like, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's just fine. And I was like, really? And he's like, he had nothing else to say about it apart from, it's not bad, it's not good, it's fine. And I was like, huh, okay. Saw it, and I was like, yeah,
It just exists.
it exists.
But it's just interesting. So Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck, they'd made, it's kind of a funny story, which is this like very 2010 indie drama set in
Rings a bell.
a clinic where the main guy, Gilchrist, I think is teenager. I think he's attempted suicide, so he's in this sort of treatment for 5 days. He's in there with Emma Roberts and Zach Galifianakis. It's got one of those posters which is like dots of their faces all around. They're all smiling. It's like, it's kind of a funny story. But it's actually like, I think now would be dealt with a bit more interestingly because it's about mental health.
I've seen the
and
trailer
depression.
for this, definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Then they make this film called Mississippi Grind with Ben Mendelsohn and Ryan Reynolds. I wanted to see this for ages, and I did see it eventually. And I know you're thinking, like,
Yeah.
Ben Mendelsohn and Ryan Reynolds, that seems like a big film. It's this story of Ben Mendelsohn plays this gambling addict who's just like down his luck. He's running out of money. And he meets Ryan Reynolds at this at one time playing, and he's like, you are someone I can't read. I can't read you at all. Let's get together. You can break my bad luck streak because you're such a wild card. Let's go down the Mississippi, hit up all the casinos and see if we can win big. And it's kind of a fun little buddy thing, a little bit of sadness about gambling addiction in there, also a bit of fun about winning and yeah, it's okay. I mean, I love watching those. I love watching Ben Mendelsohn, and actually, it's nice to watch Ryan Reynolds. This is like pre-Deadpool, so just before he
Right.
like got stuck in Deadpool mode, it was nice to see him try something else. It's fine, but I was then very, very surprised. Very indie sensibility films to then go into Captain Marvel, and which we've just discussed. But afterwards, I think this is like a good example of directors who have done their Marvel bit, and they're like, "Thank you very much. We won't be back.
Thanks for the money.
Thanks
and
for the money and the
exposure.
exposure. We're now going to do something else." And they did this big TV series called Mrs. America, which came out in 2020, right? Which thanks to lockdown, I actually had time to sit down and watch all of it. This was this huge ensemble TV series about the ERA in the 1970s America. The ERA was the Equal Rights Amendment Bill. This was a movement to amend the Equal Rights, the Equal Rights Amendment to amend the Equal Rights law in the United States to make sure that women and men were recognised equally and therefore could get equal pay and all those kind of things. And it follows Kate Blanchett as the main character, Phyllis Schlafly, who was this kind of conservative right-wing leader who was against the ERA. So she was a prominent woman who was against the Equal Rights Amendment. And she sort of led this movement, and then you've got these kind of two camps. And Rose Byrne plays Gloria Steinem on the other side. You have these kind of two camps fighting, one to get the ERA passed, the other one not to get it passed. And Democrats come, Republicans go. It's very interesting. You've got Tracy Ullman in there. You've got Elizabeth Banks. I'm actually going to pull the cast up so I can read it off. You've got Kate Blanchett, Rose Byrne, Elizabeth Banks, Sarah Paulson, Tracy Ullman, Margot Martindale, John Slattery, James Marsden, Melanie Linsky, Jean Triplehorn, just Adam Brody, a real
Adam Brody,
Jake Lacey, just a real
Adam Brody back.
bumper. I like Adam Brody.
Yeah.
I like him does that stuff. Anyway,
He pops up. He's an actor that pops up in so many random things. Like he's in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Or
but anyway, at each episode, a different character was the main character, and they followed their sort of
like Skins
journey through the right. Thank you, James. But Mrs. America was really interesting, and it's a very complicated story, the ERA, and it was also important especially in the time that it was made, to not reduce these figures like Gloria Steinem and Phyllis Schlafly into just figureheads. Like even Phyllis Schlafly, they flesh out her role to understand what made her so entrenched in her position, and actually how it was driven by fear. She was very much like a Cold War kind of had a bunker under the house kind of thing. Anyway, really interesting series. Go check it out. I think it's on Disney Plus. But I was like, yeah, I can see in Mrs. America the indie roots plus the Marvel budget have come together to make quite an interesting story that I don't know wouldn't have been made if you hadn't had the Marvel muscle that you've just flexed, having made Captain Marvel, right?
That's great. That sounds great. I want to watch that.
Kate Shortland is next with Black Widow, which came out last year, but obviously had been in production for many years, just delayed due to the pandemic, right? So Kate Shortland is an Australian, predominantly TV director before. She did this. She worked on a lot of episodes of The Secret Life of Us, which was this kind of like seminal TV series in early noughties in Australia. Then she made Laura. I think it's Lore, but it's pronounced Laura, which is about Nazi-occupied France. And then she made a film called Berlin Syndrome with I get her confused. She's not Blake Lively. She's not Amber Heard. She's Teresa Palmer. She's Teresa Palmer. She's not Blake Lively. She's not Amber Heard. She's Teresa Palmer, right? And that was the story of someone who kind of like gets kidnapped in Berlin. Never saw it. I heard it was quite a good lock-in. And then she comes in with Black Widow, which we talked about on a separate episode. And I think us and most people were like, pretty limp. Again, pretty ropey action sequences. No one dies in that film. Another prop film where no one dies or gets injured.
Really unrewarding villain reveal.
Yes.
You had a masked villain, and the reveal was more boring than it should have been. I just don't understand. Yeah. It could be Marvel. You could have brought anyone under that mask. So boring.
Someone who's also couldn't speak.
Ray Winston just I can't even. Yeah.
I don't think it's Ray Winston's fault. I'm like, if you book Ray Winston, you know that he can only do one accent.
Bet in play now.
Yeah, bet in play now. You don't get him to do I'm a Russian oligarch. Anyway,
cool falling down scene where everyone's falling.
No, I didn't like that until that.
That was fine, but
a bit where Florence Pugh basically explodes and she's absolutely fine. Please don't spare me.
And then afterwards, it became really bitter about Scarlett Johansson suing the MCU for
suing Disney for
it got released on Disney Plus early, didn't it?
Yes.
And then a lot of her pay was meant to be on the box office success, and
anyway. And Kate Shortland has no projects in development, but. I don't know if that's. I don't see any sort of directorial hand in.
And also, sorry, we were very switched off to watching Black Widow because spoilers for Infinity War, Endgame is that Scarlett Johansson dies.
Yeah.
So you didn't really feel like there was any way this.
No jeopardy.
I was hoping they weren't going to have a time machine come through and be like, "We got to save you from dying." Do a Loki,
right?
You know.
Oh yeah.
But they didn't, and it just was a bit late for that story.
Okay, next up is Destin Daniel Cretton with Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Right.
Okay.
Destin Daniel Cretton, have you ever seen Short Term 12?
No.
Short Term 12 is a really good, interesting indie film that kind of broke out the festival circuit in like 2013. It was Brie Larson's first lead role. And when you look at the poster, when you look at the description, you're like, this seems like classic indie fodder. It's set at it's not juvie, it's not juvenile delinquent center, but it's a lot of teenagers who get sent there for bad behavior.
Yeah.
I guess it is juvenile detention center, and it's got the kind of hallmarks of like, I guess it's going to be like bonding, a bit of community over conflict, and that is there, and you've got these troubled children, troubled teenagers, and you've got the staff, and it's about their relationship. It's got the most before they were famous cast I've ever seen.
Like who?
Brie Larson, obviously, would go on to win an Oscar. Rami Malek, just like fifth billing as just a guy who like works there. Stephanie Beatrice from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Caitlin Dever from Booksmart. Lakeith Stanfield, who's in everything now, from Get Out and Atlanta. And you're watching, you're like, oh, him. Oh, him. Oh, he's in it. Oh, she's in it. Anyway, but actually, Short Term 12 is really solid and manages to like not only have its foot in the indie kind of genre like that, but actually break out and actually make you care about what's happening. And it doesn't lean into the tropes too much. There's no sort of, you know what? Let's just drive to sunset and set ourselves free. There's not actually any of that. It really takes time to understand the issues affecting these children and why they've come to behave the way they do. And it was informed by Cretton's real experience working in that, so it's incredibly personal, and you can really see that. Then he made something called The Glass Castle with Brie Larson again, which was kind of a sort of, I didn't get massive release with Woody Harrelson. And then he made Just Mercy, which is again with Michael B. Jordan, story about, it's a death row, based on a true story. And, you can kind of see there the kind of social... What am I looking for? Like the social issue angle in all of his ones.
Yeah.
The kind of, but then you get Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. You're like, okay.
Flying red rings.
Flying red rings. And I'm like, okay, I'm just trying to work out where Short Term 12 figures into this. And it doesn't really, let's be honest. Okay, like as
much as you could sit here and try and find the link.
I feel like he gave it a good shot and it was very fun. I don't look at Shang-Chi as like a failed exercise in the same way that something Black Widow is.
No.
I just think I found it a bit ineffectual. I feel like we're past that kind of film now.
Watch it and then you're done and in and out.
Yeah, so the lead guy, great,
charismatic good performance, and the lead girl, I can't remember her name, but those two together,
they're okay. A little bit too much, but yeah,
too much. I enjoyed them,
but it's fine. But I'm interested to know what he's doing next, and he's doing a thing called Scenes for Minors, which is interesting because it relates to another director we were talking about. So Scenes for Minors is a TV series that he's working on with Ryan Coogler from Black Panther, and another screenwriter called Chinaka Hodge, and it's based on Cretton's experience working in residential foster care, like with Short Term 12, Coogler's East Bay area upbringing and time working in a juvenile detention facility.
That's cool.
And Hodge's experience teaching underserved youth in Bay Area continuation schools and her 15 years of working with local youth. So drawing on all those influences, two Marvel movie directors there, I really look forward to seeing what that TV series becomes. Okay, next up with Eternals. Now, you and I have talked about Eternals.
That's another film we didn't...
Well, look, I don't... You really didn't like it.
Yeah, it pissed
and
me
I
off.
thought it was passable, but that's because I didn't go to the cinema and see it. I let myself I controlled the explosion and watched it on a TV in the afternoon. So what it took away from me was limited. It could never rob me of money in the same way that going to the cinema would rob me of an evening.
Whereas in my evening with Eternals, 5 times during the film, I went...
Right, yeah.
That's the byline of my review.
But that was really interesting because you had this huge sort of space opera, galactic gods.
Time hopping, universe spinning.
But it's directed by Chloe Zhao, whose films, including The Rider and Nomadland, are incredibly grounded, intimate, often feature non-actors performing. Like The Rider is about a horse rider who has a near-fatal accident and it kind of changes his whole career because he can't ride properly anymore. And it's with a proper, that's basically this guy's story that she's just kind of weaved into a fiction. And the same with Nomadland. Obviously, it's got Frances McDormand in it and David Strathairn, but the characters we meet are real people that just kind of nudged and influenced into a narrative. I love Nomadland. I thought it was really beautiful.
I found that with Eternals, less about Chloe Zhao, more just the film, is that a lot of the times with Marvel, I go, oh, film, can't wait to see them again. At the end of Eternals, I'm like, I saw those characters, I go, yeah, and...
Yeah. You know what? I do think actually...
Like that's been happening
whenever I see
times.
another Marvel film now, I'm like, so they're just out there, are they?
They're just
Are
chilling.
we expecting them to come back at some point? Do I now have to pretend that this universe now contains those people?
It's going to be a scene where all of them and Shang-Chi are all kind of... I guess. I don't care. You know what I was also wondering is that we know that they're casting X-Men, the Marvel's X-Men, right now, and that's going to be a thing. They'll leave behind the McAvoy Fassbenderverse. But I don't understand how mutants and superheroes can exist in the same universe.
Do you know how I would do it?
Because mutants are the superheroes in that. I guess they have time and dimensions right now.
I would do it like this. I've got the good idea. Everyone gather around. Here's my thoughts of how they could maybe do X-Men in the MCU, right?
Right.
And it's like the storyline where there's just people on the run and the bad things are happening. They're attributing to this group called mutants, right?
So they rebooted like Spider-Man. Like Spider-Man didn't exist.
Yeah,
before.
they totally
X-Men
rebooted
are only
it.
just existing
and
now.
it's like almost like a breakaway, like terrorist organization, and it's like, who are these people? And then you have to follow this trail of death and destruction. And then the twist is when you get to the end, it's like, wait, these people not just have powers, but they're actually being hunted themselves and they're conflicted. And you realize, oh my God, they're part of a bigger conspiracy. And because that's what the whole thing with the mutants is, right?
Yeah.
It's like they are victims themselves. So maybe, I don't know, someone's on the trail and it's like, no, these people aren't bad. They've been set up and they're actually mistreated. It's this like subgroup of superhuman people.
So really redo it. Not like how traditional X-Men, that like some of the biggest, most powerful people in the world have all been linked to the mutants and like presidents and...
Kind of. Maybe like some sort of just like spin-off like conspiracy about it. Maybe. I can hear the fury of all the comic book fans now saying...
That's actually not what I was going to do.
What are you
They'll
talking
use
about?
the time stone to blow that.
So, I don't know. It's just a thought. Anyway, I digress. So,
Either way, we're getting it.
back to Chloe Zhao a second, though.
As we were.
Yeah, so when you watch Eternals, you don't really see any of that. Although what you do see is like shot in real locations.
Yes.
It's very much outside. It's got like natural light.
5 minutes from here.
I admire her determination to put her voice on what is essentially a massive bit of space garbage. Like, I really admire that. And I kind of think...
It is a bit. Like, with the Titan, like, speaking to...
I kind of hope now that this hasn't burnt her too much and she can go off and continue to make really great art, which is what she's been doing.
I've no doubt on her as a great filmmaker.
No, as well.
That's the thing. It's like, as a director, you can almost subcompartmentalize your Marvel project, regardless of how well it does, and be like, yeah, but you know, the machine.
But you see the inconsistency with someone like, like the Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck with Captain Marvel. I couldn't see their stamp on that film. But at least with Eternals, I can see Chloe Zhao in there. I can see her trying to do something. Is that better? Is it worse? Do you just switch it off? I don't know.
Do you think if you're Kevin Feige and Louis D'Esposito, right, you're the big wigs at Marvel, do you almost want to not bring in directors that have too much of an established personality and voice?
Well, totally.
Because they're going to want to
brand clash.
Completely hijack it.
Yeah.
And you actually want someone who's hot off their second or third film that people are talking about.
Influenceable.
Yes, who's more malleable. You can offer them lots of money, lots of exposure, but they do have to kind of tie the party line.
Toe the party line.
Toe the party line.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean.
Maybe this is just completely.
Well, that's why I thought like when they said Quentin Tarantino had come up with a Star Trek film, I was like, that's good, but the main challenge there is getting an audience to rationalize a Star Trek film, what they think of what Star Trek is, and what they think of Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah,
it's like that's a massive. It's like a crossover movie, two universes together.
It's mind-boggling, but fuck, I want it.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're doing it. I don't know if they're doing it.
So. Well, Tarantino's only got one more film.
But yeah, okay.
He says.
Anyway,
it's all
last
marketing.
of all,
it's like Elton John saying it's his last ever tour, and then he's going on 3 more tours.
Last of all, Sam Raimi with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Yes. You and I have talked about Doctor Strange too,
twice,
but Sam Raimi, of course, draws not only on horror influences with The Evil Dead, but like also slapstick comic, very practical effects with The Evil Dead. You kind of have a superhero thing with Darkman as well. And then he does the Spider-Man trilogy.
One of the best scenes.
He also does. Do you know he also did Oz the Great and Powerful? Very, very forgettable. And I think that was
Mila Kunis.
Yeah, and then he came back. That was his previous film, and then he came back with Doctor Strange.
It's interesting about Sam Raimi horror influence on the superhero films he's done, because in Doctor Strange 2 I found that didn't quite fit in with Marvel. I felt it slightly incongruous to the story.
I thought it was the one redeeming feature.
So there we go. And then interestingly in his Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy, one of the best scenes in that entire trilogy is in Spider-Man 2 when Dr. Octopus he's sort of passed out and he's in hospital and the doctors are about to amputate his metal arms. And there's this amazing scene where Alfred Molina is still asleep, but the arms are awake and are basically like fighting all of these nurses and doctors, and it's the most incredibly cut horror scene. And like there's cams where like the POV of the arm is like going around and killing people, and people are getting like dragged and their nails are dragging across the floor. It's this 45-second moment where the blade is about to come down on the arm and just chaos ensues. It's one of the best put together scenes, and it is pure Sam Raimi. Definitely go back and watch it if you haven't. It's a hidden gem, and then Alfred Molina escapes from the hospital.
I really don't know those films at all.
Oh,
I
yeah.
really don't.
Was Spider-Man 2 the one you haven't seen or you have seen?
I hadn't really. I've only seen Spider-Man 3. Really, I saw Spider-Man 2 once, probably 20 years ago.
I'm going to show you that scene once we're done, because you'll see exactly what I mean. Okay. It's a gem of the Maguire Spider-Man series. But that's when Sam Raimi's horror stuff was like a perfect injection in that film.
Well, I like it when you can see a director putting a little bit of their touch in it, and that's what I did like about it in the Multiverse of Madness. Okay, I appreciated that being there. Anyway. Then we have most recently, obviously, Taika Waititi again with Thor: Love and Thunder. But look, that's the MCU, and I know this has been a bit of that's the MCU, and I know this has been a bit of an exhaustive exercise. But we really wanted just to show that directors are drawn from a massive pool, and they bring so much talent and different things to the MCU, which sometimes is apparent and sometimes isn't seen, but can then actually launch them into more interesting projects afterwards as well.
I enjoyed that. I got a really good context through the entire journey of where everyone's come from, the different people that have come in, the different types of directors they've brought in recently.
Types.
Interesting to see now Marvel is doing what it's doing, whether it's kind of coasting on Endgame fumes, where the directors they bring in. Like based on our conversation we just had, I'll be interested to see if they bring in someone who's much bigger than the people they currently have, or whether or not they're quite happy getting people at this earlier stage of their career. Bigger. Exactly. I don't know.
Well, obviously, it won't be Nolan or Cameron. Too big. Too busy.
No, but that's a good question. Like, what would actually?
Because also a bit like referring to some of the correspondence we've had, because Marvel has such a chokehold on upcoming talent. It's like, who is a big director who hasn't gone through the Marvel system? Who's made it as a big successful director?
They could get someone like Matthew Vaughn in, who's done X-Men, Kingsman. Like that's what I'd say. He's very well established in that space.
Sure.
Would they even be interested, or would Matthew Vaughn even be interested?
Ritchie. I don't think Guy Ritchie's a strong enough strong enough director to pull it off, but he's done blockbusters and I don't want to see that. I don't want to see the Guy Ritchie Marvel film. But do you know what my point is? It's like there are directors of a certain generation who made it before Marvel, right? Who are the directors now, up and coming, who have made it big enough to be established names who haven't gone through the Marvel system?
Joseph Kosinski. You could see that would be a big name after Top Gun.
Yes, I would say, that's a very good shout. But he might be like, I'm done. I've done my big blockbuster.
I'm sure he got a % of Top Gun Maverick and is sitting pretty cozy.
I'd rather work. The blockbusters I want to do are Tom Cruise ones, or
or original IP. He can probably off Top Gun Maverick, he can go, right, I want to make another action film that's not pre-existing. Yeah, no, who knows? How do we define like success that isn't that? But anyway, not JJ.
Maybe go back to JJ.
Again, that's such a. He's like the guy that reboots the stuff.
Yeah,
isn't he?
You bring him in to sort of save the day and tie it all up. We'll have to see.
That was great. And if you did miss our part one, we did
go and
the first half. If you like this and you wanted to hear about the earlier side, go back and
are there
listen
any
to
directors that you really feel were like done a disservice by Marvel, or you really want to see in the MCU?
Yeah, who would you like to see?
Yeah, who would you like to see direct some stuff? So let us know. Well, that was the MCU Directors Part 2.
Part 2.
Thank you. Right, let's read some emails.
Let's do it. Thank you very much for writing into the show. Don't forget, if you want to write into the show and have your question read out, you can do by emailing hello@popkitchenpodcast.com. Just like George did. Not you, George. Different George.
Hey,
I rewatched Deer Hunter the other day. Have you spoken about John Cazale yet? We haven't spoken about John Cazale yet.
Interesting one, because John Cazale is a very interesting actor who only appeared in 5 feature films, but they were all nominated for Best Picture. They were Godfather, Godfather Part 2, Dog Day Afternoon, Deer Hunter, and The Conversation.
This is like That's great. I'll just call it.
Yeah, like God. Well, he died.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so he didn't quit. He sadly died very young at 42 of cancer. He was in a relationship with Meryl Streep at the time, and they were, was very close. And it was very sad. But he's great. And he wasn't a lead in any of these, but he brings that kind of. If you see any of those films, he kind of brings that nervous, sweaty 70s energy, which I really like.
That's such a thing.
He's got such a 70s face and such a 70s disposition. Like, oh God, whether he's being Fredo and he's being I can't quite remember his character exactly in The Deer Hunter. I've only seen that once. Conversation, he's, again, a small part, but plays it very well. And Dog Day Afternoon I need to rewatch as well. But yeah, he's like John Cazale, 5 movies, all great. And that was it.
A thing to do, like, maybe for another episode when we do an editorial, where it's like actors you could watch, like all actors whose all of their films, like chances are they're good. Like they have great.
Who's got the strongest
picks.
filmography? I'm pretty sure we've had a correspondence about that.
Yeah.
Well, we need to like pitch each other whose filmography.
Like worst comes to worst, if I just choose this actor's filmography and throw a dart, you're going to find a really good.
Yeah, I think
film.
I think we might. I'm pretty sure we got an email about that, but let's think about that.
We should
more.
do that. Like actors who've just got a stellar list of films.
Yeah, whose filmography you can bank on.
We also got someone. It was about actors who have a very mixed filmography,
right?
With highs and lows.
Okay,
I think someone used Jake Gyllenhaal as an example.
Oh yeah, what are the highs of Jake and the lows of Jake? Yes, sure, I get it.
This next one is from Jasmine. Jasmine writes into the show, and she says, "Hi, I've only listened to a few of your podcasts so far," in block caps.
Okay.
"I'm listening to the Top Gun review currently, but I'm slightly perplexed by the glossing over of George having not ever seen Titanic." Excuse me? I didn't know people like that existed. Is this phenomenon analysed in another podcast? Because it really should be. P.S. Top Gun Maverick, 8 out of 10. Yeah, okay, so she does go on to say something else, but George, do you want to address the
Titanic thing quickly? Oh, look, I think we did talk about it.
We have addressed it,
I think very early on, very in the early days. Here's the thing about Titanic. I think I grew up in an anti-Titanic household, which is that Titanic was on. It was clearly rented.
You had
or
a
put
flag
on.
with like the silhouette of the Titanic and an X outside your front porch.
And I think my parents, I think particularly my dad, was like, no way, this is so stupid, so silly, ridiculous. Also,
and it's 3 hours long.
And it's 3 hours long. That it was like, we're turning that off, we're never watching it. And then I as a result, I never engaged in it, never saw it. I occasionally see clips of, they come up and suggested on YouTube, scenes. Like, oh, the sinking scene. But I've never sat down and watched it.
Leonardo DiCaprio, like, flicking his hair as he draws.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you say
so.
so.
Fun fact, that's James Cameron's hands in the close-up of the actual drawing. James Cameron is drawing.
Right,
yeah.
Okay, well, cool. I guess they couldn't get
Leo
Leo for that day.
Yeah.
Leo's hands can't act. His whole body can, but his hands can't. So Titanic, no, sorry, carry on.
It's also generationally, it came out at a time where like people our age would have seen it at that.
We were too
growing
young
up. So I remember specifically, I had to close my eyes during the car scene.
Oh, right, yes.
It's like, James, look away, and I'd go like, and I didn't understand what I couldn't see, but I listened.
How old were you when you watched? When do you remember an age when you watched something you were like, I'm probably a bit too young for this?
Ooh, GoldenEye with Pierce Brosnan, and there's a really intense sex scene with, I can't remember her name.
Well, he kills her. She kills him. Yes, it's with
Famke. Many. You know when they're in the sauna?
Yeah, Famke Janssen.
That's
Famke Janssen kills the guy. No,
but they have this really like violent sex. Where, like, they're trying to kill each other.
You conflated two things. There's a bit where she kills a guy that she's sleeping with.
Yes.
And then separate to that, she tries to kill James Bond in a sauna.
That's it. That's the scene.
Sexual. But it's not. They're not having sex. It's sexual attack.
Yes,
and it's like the legs around
She's
the
like
neck,
biting his lip, and it's strange.
Yes.
So I remember seeing that and being like, "This is so confusing. What is this
How
thing
old are you?
that people do?" I was terrified. I was like, "What the hell is going on?"
Like 6 or something.
I don't know. I think it would have been on TV when I watched it.
Okay,
so I used to watch loads of. My dad used to rip. VHS tapes of James Bonds.
Oh,
they were on TV
everyone
constantly.
used to do the old
I used
record,
to have. I remember having like 10 James Bond
handwritten
VHS
labels
labels.
Yeah.
Oh, what a moment! Yeah, and I would go through and watch them and be like, "This is so confusing. I have no idea what's going on.
Why are they attacking?" Yeah. I think
first time I have sex, I'm like, my lips.
I think mine would be, not that you asked, but I'm going to answer.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
I think I remember. Basically, I talked a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, I used to watch those best movies of all time.
Yes, Tree of Life.
The one that used to stick out to me was The Shining, right? And for ages, I was like, I really want to watch The Shining because I'd seen it parodied in The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror, right? And I'd seen reference of it in pop culture. And my dad and my parents were like, no. And I was like, no, I really, really want to see it. Like, they're like, and they hadn't seen it, my parents. They were like, no, not really. I was like, no, but I really. Anyway, I just wore them down until I think I was 8. maybe 9, and I saw it come on to Sky Movies in like it was school holidays, and I was like, "It's on, and we're watching it." And they were like, "Fine." Anyway, then we sit down to watch it.
Little film enthusiast, George.
I get about 20 minutes in, and like the twin. I've already had the blood out the thing, right?
Yeah.
And I've got the twins in the corridor, right? I see that, and after that, I go very quiet. I go completely silent, and they're like, "George, do you want to? Should we watch? Do you want to watch something else?" Then I was like, "Okay, yeah, okay." So that's different to not being scared for the first time, because I remember watching Ghostbusters and being really scared.
Right. Yeah.
And I think maybe I was a bit too young. I had to go watch Toy Story afterwards. I remember that, and I saw Rick Moranis getting eaten by the demon dog outside the glass restaurant.
Quite a lot Ghostbusters for a kid.
But yeah. So The Shining was the first one. I think I was like, I'm reaching. It's like I want to watch a film, and I realised I've reached too much there.
I was really scared of Signs when I first watched it, because that's scary for a kid. Yeah. As a kid, that was scary. Not so much now. Then, a follow-up question. Do either of you have the IMDb or Letterboxd app? What do you think about ratings by critics? What do you think about ratings by critics, audiences, so Rotten Tomatoes, etc.? Maybe you could talk about films that have a really low ratings or lower ratings but are amazing films. A great example is Cat in the Hat. It has a Rotten Tomatoes rating of 9%. Shocking, in my opinion. Like I said, I'm only on your most recent episodes, but this may have already been covered. Jasmine, it has been covered. George does have Letterboxd. We don't have a PULP Kitchen one, but if you look in the link in the YouTube, I don't know if you're a listener or a viewer, we link to the Letterboxd and you can have a look at George's Letterboxd. But in terms of ratings and sort of Metacritic, Rotten Tomatoes, where do you stand on those kinds of things?
Well, it's funny. I think you have to take everything with a pinch of salt, and you always need to have your own like spreadsheet in your mind that could gets like an average out of all of them. So I have someone who like goes by IMDb a lot, and I've had to say to them like, no, IMDb is great, but it's voted for by like punters. Like anyone can vote for it, right? That's why you get. That's why The Dark Knight is up there at like 9.9. I'm not saying The Dark Knight's a bad film, but it's just like you get. Whereas even Letterboxd, I think, is a slightly more specific, more niche crowd. So if I see something that's over 4.0 on Letterboxd, I'm like, that's high.
Yeah.
And then I'll cross-reference that with what's it got on IMDb. Okay, is it over a 7? Okay, that's interesting. And what's it got on Rotten Tomatoes? Okay, it's got over 70. Okay. Those together form a picture that this might be worthwhile, right?
Yeah.
However, Rotten Tomatoes, the less reviews it has, the higher the score. But usually, if you take a relatively good film, right? So if it has like 5 good reviews, it's going to have like 90%. But it could have 100
weighs things more
good reviews, and it'd be 70%, right?
Yeah.
And there was that whole thing about like fake reviews on there, the reviews being bought, and like campaigns against other films on Rotten Tomatoes. So to answer your question, ratings, I think you almost need to have your own one in your head, but also go with your gut feeling. Just still watch a film regardless. Like there was a film I really was intrigued by called Vox Lux. Okay,
yeah.
Have you seen it?
No, but I've heard you talk about it a lot.
Okay, have I talked about it on this show?
Maybe brought up.
Maybe.
Please
was
go
it
ahead.
one of those times where you and I talk when we're not recording?
No.
Do we do that anymore? Yeah. So Vox Lux was this film with Natalie Portman, and it has a really intriguing premise. It's like it begins in like the 90s, and there's a high school shooting, and I'm like, high school shooting, what? And this one of the girls survives, and at the eulogy, she like sings this beautiful ballad, and it catapults her onto like the road to stardom, and then it cuts to the present day, and she's Natalie Portman. She's like a massive pop star, and I'm like, whoa, that sounds really interesting. Got a bit of fame, bit of America, celebrity, violence. Okay, what's going on there? Anyway, Letterboxd score bad. IMDb score bad. Rotten Tomatoes score bad. But stick with your gut and watch it. And watch it. And I did. It's a shocking film. It's really, really bad. It's a mess, but I'm glad I watched it. You need to see these things. You need to see what's bad and what doesn't work. If you don't, listen to your own instinct with something. What I will just say as well, when you
form your own opinion, and then go watch something without reading 1,000 reviews.
Yes.
Actually, form your own impression of it, and then you can be confirmed by what someone else has said, or like, I disagree, and that's what makes you a better consumer of art, content, literature.
The idea that when people say, I use reviews to determine which films I should go see. In a way, for me, seems very outdated. Like the 90s, like
go with your
Siskel and
interest.
Ebert. It's like, no, Go with what film you want to see, and then afterwards engage with the reviews as a way of like joining the discussion, right?
Yeah.
Like come to it afterwards. Just a little thing when they mentioned about Cat in the Hat. Yeah, I just checked, and How the Grinch Stole Christmas has got 49% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Cancel
Out.
the website.
Get out.
Are you mad?
Scandalous.
That is a 90 plus.
I think that's a 90 plus. I'd accept maybe an 89. Perhaps it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, we will talk about this more at Christmas, but The Grinch, How
I
the
think we
Grinch Stole Christmas.
rewatch The Grinch and do it scene by scene.
Yeah, we
just.
alphabetically.
I think Leaders of Metacritic Rotten Tomatoes is like all things in the internet. It suits to show the extremes of each side. So I feel like films that have the most ratings will either be in the 20-30% or the 90%. And I reckon there's a bunch of films in the middle that are like 60-70% that are actually not very accurate because I don't think people rate the films, which is 60-70%.
Soft middle.
You either get films that people like really want to downvote.
Yeah.
Like there's a huge fan base that like maybe really wants to let everyone know that The Last Jedi is bad, as an example. I don't know what the rating is, but I feel like 98%. I'm always like, is it that good?
Yeah.
And also, like, we're attributing a numerical, almost scientific value to something that's artistic, which I find, on the whole, quite like. What does it mean to be 92%? Is that 1% better than 93%?
I know.
No.
I know. And also, like, even Letterboxd, like, you have personal ratings as well. So I do sometimes. I do mostly rate on Letterboxd my things out of 5, and you can do like 4.5 and 3.5.
Yeah.
But I think I recognize that's very personal to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know,
It's
I
your
know
own thing.
what a 3-star. I know what my 3-star qualifies as, and I know what my 4-star qualifies. But if I see someone give it 5-star, that's by their own metric. It's a different thing.
And people think that if something gets 10 stars or 5 stars or 10 out of 10, that's not perfect.
No.
It just means it represents the best of what cinema is right now. I guess again, like who
know.
knows what that means.
Anyway,
very interesting conversation. But yes, please go check out Letterboxd. We will do The Grinch at Christmas. This is from Dan in Cirencester, a regular writer into the show. Thank you, Dan. Another great epi, chaps. Always look forward to my Wednesday drive home. Oh, that's very good. I've got 10 minutes left of the episode, but whilst I remember, here is what came to mind for greatest openings. I do hope you pulled over to write this email. Must write it. Here he goes. The Dark Knight. Skyfall, brackets, best James Bond intro there will ever be.
Pretty good.
La La Land. Love that it's a one-shot and so memorable that they start both characters' initial storylines from it at different points in the film.
Yes.
Baby Driver came to mind whilst you were discovering Drive, which is agreeably fantastic. Used to think the world of the film. Used to think the world of the film. And on rewatching it, it gets a bit worse each time. But the opening gets you straight into the action and is accompanied by a phenomenal soundtrack. And then he's given some suggestions for segments. I'll take a suggestion for a segment. Best
Wait,
hangover.
can we
Let's go for that. So The Dark Knight.
Great movie opening. Talked about that.
We talked about that briefly.
Very heavily informed by Heat. Love that.
Yes.
Next one.
Skyfall.
Yeah, great. On
Brilliant.
the train.
Bond loses,
Yes.
which is a nice contrast to usually just,
Okay. Third one, La La Land. Yeah, great. Totally agree. I love the fact there's different people on this thing and the colourful, filmed in Panavision. Love that. Yeah, great. Next.
Baby Driver.
Yeah, I agree. Great opening. Comes from the short music video, which was a really good thing. Baby Driver, I agree. The more I've watched it and the less I've actually thought of it. But fun.
One thing on the La La Land opening is for me, La La Land was slightly imbalanced with how heavily it leaned on the musical elements in the beginning and where it slightly trailed them off at the end. And then it's sort of halfway through the film, I was enjoying it, but I was like,
where's the music?
Where's the music?
Yeah.
What's the tone? Are we departing from that? Is it purposeful and I'm kind of not getting it?
No, I agree. Halfway through, I remember thinking, this is basically like Crazy Stupid Love now. Where bring back the music.
And it was so overhyped. And I was like, oh my God, La La Land, 5 stars, Oscar nominations. And I saw it and I was like, I liked it.
The hype was aggressive. Aggressive.
To hold off Whiplash, I was really excited to see Damien Chazelle film. Some suggestions for segments. By all means, please send us ideas for the show.
Yeah,
we need them.
People do.
Yeah, they do. Best hangover films. I watched 10 Things I Hate About You on
Part
Sunday,
2.
and it remains a classic. Yeah.
sorry. What is it? 10 Things I Hate About You?
Part 2. 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yeah.
Great. I should rewatch that because I
a
think
good
it's
film.
probably still great.
I love Julia Stiles, right? Yes.
Julia Stiles. And then, you two are so agreeable. You always convince each other of your points. I want disagreement. Are there any films you don't see eye to eye on? I know what you mean, but there are some films we don't see eye to eye on. There was Spencer most recently. But
Doctor Strange 2 a little bit.
Yeah.
What's a film that we really are on opposite ends?
Spider-Man No Way Home.
We disagreed on that. Matrix 4.
Oh, Matrix, yeah, completely. We know the thing is we didn't properly unpack that Matrix discussion. I couldn't stand it, and you thought
thought it was better. I thought it was intriguing. More intriguing than I thought. The more I get away from it, the more I'm like, that was.
I think there is room for us
Shall
to
I
sit
not
here
even
and
finish that sentence?
Oh, sorry.
Or
Yeah,
do you
go
want
on.
to just cut
Sorry,
across
I got
it?
compelled with an
It's
idea,
fine.
as you were.
Go on.
Oh, I think there's room for like us engaging with each other and really disagreeing. But I don't think it's like the format of the podcast should be just like, if you don't agree with me, I don't need you to agree with me to get on with you.
But I mean, I see his point though. I am interested to know, if you were to draw it on a scale of where we sit, is there a film somewhere in all the films that you are like, I absolutely champion this film? I mean, I'm like, James, you're an idiot.
I think there's films I really like that you might be indifferent on.
Yeah, of course.
Like Lord of the Rings.
Right.
That I love, and you're like, just whatever.
Sure.
Rings of Power trailer, man. Fuck, I saw that this week.
Yeah.
It tickled my Tolkien funny bones.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan. This next one is from Anthony. Hey, Pulp Kitchen podcast. Really enjoyed your review of Thor, Love and Thunder. Thank you. My overall feeling was that they didn't spend enough time building up the villain. For someone who is a god butcher, he does very little butchering on screen.
Yes.
The whole point with Eternity in the finale seemed like main characters were leaking exposition rather than having a more neutral discovery. Overall, I enjoyed the film, but it felt like it may be one of the weaker Thor films. Thanks, Anthony.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there are a lot of missed opportunities with Love and Thunder. It's serviceable just about, but like I think missed.
We got a lot of love for our impression on social media. People are like, oh yeah, that's what I thought. I think on the God Butcher thing, I felt like Christian Bale was great, and I'm almost a bit gutted he's not going to be in something else.
Yeah,
he would have been a great threat for a larger. A great opponent for a larger threat.
Yeah, I would have liked there to be more butchery, more of the nastiness. Get its hands dirty. It's
That's
just
what we
too
said.
clean.
Like 2/3 of the film was jokes. It was parody.
Yeah.
It was spoof. And then you got to the end and it was like, Hi lads. Ollie from London here. Absolutely love the show and have been listening for a few months now.
Thank you, Ollie.
Even though I've never met you, it feels as though we are friends through your conversations. Oh, I love that. Having said that, I was so proud when you told me your story about Glastonbury and seeing Greta, where someone is in the crowd saying "Play Wonderwall." As that sarcastic fool was me. What?
Whoa, no
so
way.
we must have been standing really near each other. Were you by the tree? I was by the tree. Anyway, this is a great excuse for me to write in and suggest an idea for the show. Every episode you mention so many great films, and while that's amazing, it has inspired me to watch a few things. It'd be great if you could focus in on one specific recommendation per week we could all watch at the same time, and then you could discuss on the next episode. Just a suggestion, but either way, keep up the good work. Thanks, Ollie.
Ollie, thanks for that email. Great idea, and it is something we would like to do. Every so often. It is incredibly in the sort of massive production that puts this show together, and the time that we have to do it. It's quite hard to schedule something ahead of time, and a lot of homework to do that. However, we are going to try and do that a couple of times a year. Say this is coming up. Not just we've done our single film deep dives, Jurassic Park, Top Gun, etc. But maybe flag them up ahead of time so people can go back and watch them, and then we can all watch it together. We're going to try and do that, but yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah, those will suit the episodes where we spend 30 plus minutes talking about one film.
Yes.
Yeah. But I don't know if it's thing every week.
Yeah.
We can't be asked.
Sorry, mate. It's tight. And there's so many other new things to talk about as well.
I'd rather see a new film offer.
And your emails. We're going to talk about your emails.
This one is from Grace. Hello from Australia. Australia.
Oh my God, no way.
All the way from Australia.
They're bad.
Yeah,
that's a little bad.
When I do Australia, I'll drift into South Africa.
Oh, yeah, you do, because you maybe say it's Perth, maybe.
Perth.
But I used to work with two ladies from Brisbane, Vegas, they called it.
Right.
Brisbane.
Now
you're just going sassy.
I'm going New Zealand.
No.
Socks. Can we get socks of them?
Jessica, what were you thinking? Drinking bubble mixture.
Is that like Julian Clary?
No, Julian Clary. He's
no, not Julian Clary.
Jermaine Clement.
Yes,
yeah,
that's
Jermaine Clement.
Yeah.
Jessica, what were you thinking? Anyway, terrible. Sorry,
now
this is not how you.
Now we pissed Grace off.
I'm sorry, Grace. That's not how you wanted us to answer your email. I'm very sorry.
I have been
Grace say?
binging all of your episodes since George's Louis Theroux and Daniel Plainview impressions on TikTok. Top tier work. I think that's one of our best. Apologies if you've already... thank you for referencing the Daniel Plainview impression.
Yeah, because I didn't get enough
That's a niche
love.
one. Yeah.
But now all I want to do is be like, right, so if you have a milkshake and I have a milkshake, does your wife know? Yeah. I was with Daniel Plainview.
So you drink?
You drink? Yeah. What I do, Louis, is my straw reaches across the room. Okay, so...
And the oil, is that no more? Is that over?
A lot of climate activists say that oil is incredibly damaging. I don't listen to those people, Louis. I'm through with them.
apologies if you've already discussed this in another episode, but I was wondering what your thoughts were on the trend of every director being asked their opinion on Marvel's superhero movies. Do you share the concerns of directors like Scorsese, Cronenberg, Campion, Loach, the list goes on, that Marvel is having a detrimental impact on the art of cinema, the cinema-going experience, and the risk that more and more independent films will only be released via streaming? I live in a relatively big city, and even I've noticed that I don't have a very large window of opportunity to see independent films, I agree, in an actual cinema. Keep up the good content, Grace. We've kind of touched upon this, and I echo my sentiment where I think the sentiment around Marvel is only as good as its last film.
Yeah.
And I think when a Marvel film is a bit average or poor, or it doesn't, make everyone very excited, I think you get a lot of these questions coming in. And I think when they're really great, everyone goes, oh, these are such great things for cinema. Look at the stories we're able to tell. So it just really depends.
Yeah, it is slightly concerning when you have, I think it was when No Way Home was coming out, and there was Licorice Pizza was a big independent film. I like Licorice Pizza. But screenings of Licorice Pizza were being bought out by Spider-Man No Way Home in certain cinemas, is what I heard, just to extend the run. It's apparently that's what I heard. That's worrying. I mean, when they said, what do we think about directors constantly being asked, I almost think it's okay if should do filmmakers need to have an opinion on everything like that? I don't know. Anyway,
I also think a lot of the statements that are picked up by news houses are often taken a little bit out of context.
Like the Scorsese thing, we talked about.
Yeah,
I think we last year, very early on, we talked about what Scorsese said with Marvel.
We did really early on. There's a YouTube clip if you want to go and check it out. G'day, chaps. Recently,
another Aussie?
Another could be.
It could be. I don't know any English people who'd say g'day.
G'day. Maybe ironically.
Maybe.
Recently, season 3 of The Boys has released and has received a lot of praise. As you have reviewed other superhero franchises, I was wondering if you have any opinions on the show and thoughts on the show. Love your work, Dan. Another Dan.
Not seen. I think I saw the first episode actually, but I haven't got into it. And I'm okay that I don't think it's bad. I don't think it looks bad. I just think I watched the first episode and I didn't progress. And that's it.
I've not seen any of it. I've heard good things. I do have this thing about when you put. I know this is the point of Boys, but you've got very pompous superhero costumes, really evenly lit in this very flat daylight way.
Oh yeah.
And it's almost I know that's probably the point.
Yeah.
But I'm almost something about the aesthetic makes me go yeah. But I hear it's very good. Maybe I need another few more people to recommend it for me to go.
I think maybe I'm just a bit burnt out with the superheroes, and also the whole trend of superheroes. What if they're bad and violent? I don't know. I feel like I've seen that quite a while now. But hey, I'm happy to be convinced.
I'm not against it. Hi, fellas. Loving the podcast from here in Australia. Australia, what's going
we're blowing
on?
up over there.
Found
We're going to do a tour.
Yeah. Yes, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth. We're coming
all
your
three
way.
of our listeners there will come over.
Found you on TikTok and binged you straight away. I like that people are binging us.
Yeah.
That seems to be a common thing.
Just
keep getting the views from the old stuff.
Thank you.
Got a few things, so sorry in advance for the length. Number 1, thanks for the recommendation for Severance. Hadn't heard much about it and sought it out from hearing it here. Amazing show. What project, film or TV upset you the most from being stuck in development hell? My 2 are Assassin's Creed and Green Lantern. Both suffered from a dodgy first outing and have struggled to find their feet since. Shows are in development, HBO Max for GL and Netflix for AC. Green Lantern and Netflix for AC, but I won't hold my breath. 3, keep up the good work, boys. Your love of film is infectious, and I always find myself saying, that's what I was thinking, but always wording it so much better. Cheers, Dan. P.S. Yes, I'm saying it. Bring back the food.
Okay, that's 1 in the yes for food pile. We've got a couple in no for food pile.
Severance is just honest. Severance is very good.
I will watch it.
Very cool ending to the season. I won't say much, but it's. I'm really excited to watch it. I'm slightly concerned that, like Lost, I wonder if the theories about what's going to happen is going to be more interesting than the answer. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It could be one of those where us speculating is where the fun is.
Yes.
But it's really good. Adam Scott is. I feel like in the last few years he's had a bit of a career resurgence, and I think what they've done quite interestingly is Adam Scott is he's really good at playing an asshole and a really nice guy.
Yeah.
And he's sort of playing a bit of two in this show. And I like that he's a really good looking guy, but they've sort of made him look really wearied and haggard and aged. And it's quite a nice way to sort of frame his character for that. And then, were there any TV or film projects you were upset from being stuck in development hell?
Not off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
Yeah, not off the top of my head. A lot of gaming ones are usually stuck in development hell.
Yeah.
I talked all about that when we spoke about The Last of Us last week, or 2 weeks ago. other than that, I can't think off the top of my head. But I know what you mean. It's frustrating. I try not to stay I try not to keep my ear too close to the ground of like projects that are in development because you can get very excited and then it never happens. And yeah,
I feel weird wearing one of these shirts because it's not my usual attire. It's just so hot in the UK that I've basically become you. I am. We've been wearing shorts for a while. One of our YouTubers spotted that.
Didn't expect you
didn't expect to see us from the waist down.
It was Mark, who's a big fan of the show.
Yeah, hey Mark,
commenting on the shorts. Hi Mark. Matt writes into hello@PULP KITCHEN podcast and says, hey guys, absolutely love the podcast and I always look forward to the next episode.
Yay.
I just graduated with a first class honours in composition and I've started my master's in music in September.
Well
That's
done.
Awesome, well done. My question / episode ideas for you both is, what do you regard as your favourite / best film score? Whoa, big question. We should maybe do an episode on this, but I worry about not being able to listen to the scores as we talk about them for copyright reasons. George, any that quickly come to your head? I mean,
Interstellar.
Interstellar's phenomenal. TikTok has reclaimed that score completely.
Yeah, fantastic.
Jurassic Park, Binary Sunset, Star Wars. There's very like obvious ones.
I'm trying to think what soundtrack I can listen to from. Mika Levy's score for Under the Skin, and for
the Shame score, which I know I mentioned is one of my favorite films, but it's a haunting, really like beautiful companion.
Johnny Greenwood's score for There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
I think Mika Levy again did it for, or no, I can't remember who it was, but for Jackie, and also Johnny Greenwood's score for Spencer.
James Newton Howard's for The Village is really beautiful.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So that's the sum.
Yeah, it's a quick little.
Oh, David Holmes for Ocean's 11. Great. So mixture of score and soundtrack in there, but great.
Yeah. Who are your favourite film composers? Being an aspiring composer, I can't help but categorise mine. Hans Zimmer, the GOAT.
I've got another one. Sorry, I think it's Abel Korzalski for Nocturnal Animals.
Oh, so good.
Yeah,
the
really good.
music swell when she's waiting at the dinner table at the end, and she's kind of realising what might have happened. And
there's one. I think
it's called Table for Two. That track.
And there's one called like Wayward Sisters. I think, or something like Wayward Stories, and it's the like Hitchcocky. Oh, it's great. It's great.
So he's listed some of his favourite composers. Hans Zimmer, one of the best composers at creating worlds of sound. I feel Interstellar and Dune are the most prominent examples of his that come to mind. I mean, Hans Zimmer, you could just go on forever.
Take about. He's up there. You know, John Williams, Hans Zimmer. You don't
and
need
then
to
Michael Giacchino.
Michael
Giacchino.
Michael Giacchino for Up.
Yes,
he did.
He
does loads. He does films where you go, oh, Michael Giacchino, and then you got another ones where you're like, this must be Michael Giacchino.
yeah. He's at the top of the food chain in composing music, which complements animation. The score of The Incredibles and Ratatouille are just fantastic.
Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross.
Yes.
The Social Network music.
So
again, we talk about the Social
haunting,
Network.
like boom, 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 like the hits just at the right time when the music's like, you're part of my attention. You have the minimum amount.
Fantastic score. And also they did. I don't know if you watched it, but like there was an 18-hour Vietnam War documentary thing that came out a couple of years ago with Ken Burns, and they did the soundtrack for that, and it changed the whole thing. It's fantastic.
Oh, Howard Shore, Lord of the Rings. Oh my God. Just completely mesmerizing in every single way. That guy creates like a complete fleet of different sounds and feels for each period and setting that you're in, and you just know as soon as the music plays, that's what emotional note we're hitting for those people. Yeah, perfect. Brilliant. I don't know if he's doing Rings of Power.
Who knows?
And of course, John Williams. He's someone that I dream of meeting, and even to grasp a crumb of his orchestral mastery one day would be a dream come true. Star Wars, in so many ways, is a space opera. So in that sense, he's kept the music of romantic 20th century composition alive and fresh for the present day. I mean, John Williams is the soundtrack of everyone in the last 40 years of his childhood. He's very old now, and is he retired? I think he's done the last few Star Wars projects.
I think he's done the last few Spielberg projects as well. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? But yes, great guy.
Keep up the good work, and who knows, one day you might be reviewing a film that I've composed the music for. It's free to dream. All the best, Matt. Matt, I would love that. Definitely stay in touch, and best of luck with all your studies.
Yes.
This one is from James from Johannesburg, South Africa. Right, I'm just going to give a shout out to the globe-trotting Pulp Kitchen audience.
Yes. We represent, we get it. Thank you so much.
Wide. Yeah. Flying the Pulp Kitchen flag. Hi, lads. I found the podcast a month or two back and haven't been able to stop listening to it whilst working on my high school art portfolio final.
Oh, wow.
Nice. The question I would like to ask is about Stanley Kubrick. I'm under the impression that Kubrick is the greatest filmmaker of all time. I would love to hear what your thoughts are on his style, legacy, and overall impact as a filmmaker on cinema as a whole. Whoa. Even if it is a sentence or two, a quote, story, or even a word to describe him. Sorry about the length, but I've fallen in love with the podcast and would Would love to hear these things. I've mentioned discussed on the show. By the way, can't wait to listen to the Star Wars prequel discussion. Also, try not to lose your cameras or spill water over your laptop. I do really like the podcast, and that's from James. George is on a water ban.
Yeah, I'm not allowed any water on the table.
He's not allowed any liquids on the table now until he sort of, reins in the limbs. But I also don't want to cripple your performance.
No,
I want you to keep flashing out there. So Stanley Kubrick, George.
Stanley Kubrick. Where to begin? Two things come to mind. The first is, if you're really interested in Stanley Kubrick, you should watch this documentary called Film Worker that came out a couple of years ago, right? Which is about Leon Vitali, who was an actor who had been in a couple of things. Then he was in Barry Lyndon, Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon, and he saw Stanley Kubrick working, and he thought, this guy is a genius. I want to be, whatever he does next, I want to be a part of it. And he just became essentially Stanley Kubrick's personal assistant and did loads of stuff. Not just personal assistant stuff, but loads of stuff across all of Stanley Kubrick's films, right? And he was very influential in certain decisions. And in The Shining, he looked after Danny Lloyd, and he's just there all the time. And it was in Stanley Kubrick's work, but it was an incredibly grueling role. And Stanley Kubrick could be a tyrant and could be very, demanding and overbearing. And Leon Vitali comes and he's in Eyes Wide Shut. I've not seen it, but he's in the ceremony under the mask, and it's just a really interesting, very novel perspective on working with one of the most famous and iconic filmmakers of the 20th century. I mean, that's what I would describe Stanley Kubrick as. I guess it's iconic when you think of films like Clockwork Orange, 2001, Full Metal Jacket.
Gosh, of his entire camera work and how influential on not just films, but video in general.
Yes, he's
someone
just
who makes videos. People reference Stanley Kubrick shots.
Yeah, and in terms of composition, it's just incredibly visionary and incredibly
striking.
Exactly. I think there are filmmakers who are not English or American who have equal merit in terms of their visual aptitude and work, but Stanley Kubrick is incredibly striking. The other thing I was going to say is that there was a fantastic exhibition about Stanley Kubrick at the Design Museum a couple of years ago. I'd say 3 years ago. I think it's touring around the world. It was in LA for a bit, which basically got all of his notebooks out, all of his archives, went through film by film, props, cameras, everything. Right there, you just immerse yourself in his brain for 3 hours, and as you entered the exhibition, the carpet was the Shining carpet, and it led you in, and it was brilliant. What do I think of his films?
Terrible.
I think no, yeah. What a load of guff.
Yeah.
I think I've only seen Stanley Kubrick films once, so I've seen The Shining once and thought interesting, goes a bit nuts at the end. Clockwork Orange, I think I watched when I was 16, but I remember thinking this is really, really interesting, and I think misunderstood at the time for the way it deals with violence. Full Metal Jacket, great first half. Yeah, great. It's two films in one. The first bit's great. The second bit kind of just goes off.
I remember discovering Kubrick in my late teens, early 20s, and remember I talked about the fact of being oh, that's where that comes from.
Yes.
But 10 times. Just be that'll be what makes an inspiring, influential filmmaker.
What I will say is I actually really want to go back and discover early Kubrick. The Killing is one of his, a black and white film, 1954, that was apparently a sort of non-linear narrative, quite influential on Reservoir Dogs. Dr. Strangelove, I really enjoyed, but would like to go back and watch that again. I've not seen Lolita. I don't think you need to see Spartacus necessarily. I think Spartacus was probably quite dated now. And it was just his sort of first and only studio film. Yeah, that's just my Kubrick summary.
That's probably as much as we'll do without going on for half an hour.
Yes.
Hi guys, found you on TikTok and I'm obsessed with the podcast. As people who are into movies, is there anything that is near universally lauded that you just don't get? For me, it's The Big Lebowski. I must have watched it 5 times on people's recommendation that it rewards reviewing and I still just don't get it. I could take this even wider and say I don't like the majority of Coen brothers' work, but now that's getting very controversial. Love the pod and keep up the good work, Ollie.
The top of my head.
Because I don't want to... James and I, we do make a kind of a conscious decision. We don't like to really dwell on the negatives. It's easy.
It's very easy to sit here and go, this is no good.
In the law of averages, the amount of films you watch, you're going to see more films that you don't like than you do, right? It's very easy to say, I don't like this one, I don't like this film, so we kind of stay away from it. But just to answer that question quickly, I would say, I've mentioned it before, Fight Club I've never gelled with, and I can't quite put into words why that is. I'm very sorry. We were talking about it earlier, Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters.
I'm sorry, I just don't.
It's true.
Yep.
We've talked about that briefly.
Even think films this is like don't like those. It's not just like, oh, I didn't get it. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. I
liked 3 Billboards.
No, I thought it was cheeky.
What was the one?
Wait, hang on. I think it was. I didn't like. Sorry, about 3 Billboards, and I brought it up. I think my issue with 3 Billboards is that like it can't decide whether to play it straight or when to be funny, and like sometimes it goes for surrealism with like the burnt out police office and like the guy being thrown out the window, but then it suddenly jolts and wants to be about heartfelt drama. And then what really bothered me is that I thought it was going to be much more of a comment about like wider issues. Like, so there's a comment at the beginning, like where they say about Sam Rockwell's character, they say, "Oh, you're just busy beating up black people in jail," and I was like, okay, social commentary, let's get into that. That is then never mentioned again, and it's about a very specific sort of character study of between Frances McDormand, Woody Harrelson, and Sam Rockwell. I was really underwhelmed.
His name in this film is escaping me, with Viggo Mortensen, Mahershala Ali.
Green Book.
Well,
that's the one I talked about when I said it works as a film, but I know it doesn't. Yeah, that one. You don't.
Yeah, I remember watching that, going like, oh god, yeah, nominated Best Picture, and me and my girlfriend just were like, this is really broad strokes.
It's out of date. It's like 30 years out of date.
Yeah. I felt like I was the crazy one, and everyone was going, this is amazing. Just couldn't.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, I didn't hate it. I thought it was fine. I think
we're gonna. I'm gonna stop there. I think it's when you.
I feel like everyone loves it.
I think it's more when you're talking about older films that are like revered as classics.
Yeah,
so I would say, Fight Club and Ghostbusters. I never got on board with, really.
Yeah. Hey! Exclamation mark! I was so. Oh, this one is from Bevan from 2 weeks ago.
Hey, Bevan, yeah.
Hi. Hey, I was so happy in block caps when you read out my email on your most recent pod. I literally told all my friends.
Hey.
Lol. Irish cinema is something I'm very passionate about. As a filmmaker myself,
Yes.
I'm coming from a filmmaking family. We have a lot of pride for the cinema we create. So when Bevan emailed last time, we said we weren't scholars of Irish cinema. Bevan's from Ireland.
She said, "What Irish films and Irish cinema do you know about?"
We kind of drew a blank. Yeah, but we said, by all means, please send us some stuff to watch, because we'd love to. And she said some films I suggest, and she's given us 5. In the Name of the Father.
Yes.
Sing Street.
Yes.
Adam and Paul.
Nice.
The Crying Game.
Yes.
My Left Foot.
Right.
I hope this helps you guys out. It's a good intro into the world of Irish cinema. If you have any more questions, please feel free to contact me. I'm more than happy to help. All the best.
That.
Bevan, our Irish correspondent.
Yeah. Another international listener as well. Love that. Bevan, thank you so much. Just on those, so In the Name of the Father, I have seen. That's Daniel Day-Lewis, Guildford 4, Pete Postlethwaite.
I constantly see clips of that on TikTok.
It's a solid film. I think it's dated a little bit now.
Right.
I watched it quite recently. Daniel Day-Lewis, obviously great. Pete Postlethwaite, obviously great. Just dated a bit now. I think the way that story would be told. My Left Foot, similarly, it's been such a long time since I've seen that. The Crying Game is an interesting one. I'd like to rewatch that. That is very, famous at the time, and I think, kind of transgressive. But yeah, and it's got that kind of Miranda Richardson in the sort of Pulp Kitchen-esque kind of cut wig, and it's got one of the famous like twists that was then like joked about halfway through, which I don't want to ruin it for you, but it's got Stephen Rea in it, and
So Bevan, thank you very much. That is all the correspondence.
One more. Sorry. And Sing Street, we talked about in a previous episode with another correspondent who wrote in about musicals. Really, really charming. John Carney, I think, made it. He also made that film once, which I haven't seen, but Sing Street, great stuff. Yeah, really enjoyed that. I think that's it for those Irish things. I can't remember any more.
Amazing. Bevan, thank you so much.
Yeah.
We will keep you in mind for all things Ireland.
Yes.
That is all we have for this week in terms of emails. Thank you so much to everyone who wrote in. If you want to write in and send us an email, you can do by emailing hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com, and we will do our best to read out your emails on the show. As you can tell, if you have emailed in, we are sometimes a couple of weeks behind, but please do send them in anyway. They are amazing. All right, George, as always, we like to end the show with a game. Today we are playing Cast List Countdown. I'm going to name cast members of a film in ascending order of importance, and you have to try and guess the film before I get to the end.
And I know there are people listening who have heard this game many times. So when we explain the rules, they're probably like, we know, but they're in
case someone doesn't.
New listers, absolutely.
That's how we want everyone to play at home. Okay, George, are you ready?
I'm ready.
You have to guess the film based on its cast. In 3, 2, 1. Caleb Landry Jones.
Landry Jones.
Annabelle Wallace.
Oh, God. I don't know if I know who she is.
You do. Zoe Kravitz.
Zoe Kravitz. Oh, well, been in so much.
I might say this wrong, Eddie Gathegi.
Eddie Gathegi.
Yeah.
Right. Gathegi. Could it be?
Could be Gathegi.
I don't know.
Rose Byrne.
Roseburn. It's
Lucas
X-Men First
Till.
Class.
Yes.
Lucas who?
Lucas Till.
Okay, I don't know. But
He's
X-Men,
the one with the is it the chest that flies
Havoc.
out? Havoc.
Yes.
And then you could have had, I said Zoe Kravitz, January Jones,
Yes.
Nicholas Hoult,
Yes.
Kevin Bacon,
Yes.
Jennifer Lawrence,
Yes.
Michael Fassbender,
Yes.
James McAvoy.
Right.
Lots of names in there.
Stacked.
Big
I
names.
think Kevin Bacon's in that.
Yeah, he is.
Kevin Bacon. I mean, I like Kevin Bacon. Ruined himself for us with the EE adverts, you know.
Oh God,
You know.
that's been going on for a
And,
decade.
and he's just like bringing it in.
Yeah, he just.
Bring
I
it
wonder.
down
I would
on
love to know that. He probably was what 3 weeks filming a year,
Probably that, if
maybe
that,
less.
if less. But it's dotted throughout. Yeah, day here,
Just
day
on
there.
pre-roll ads on YouTube before
Yeah.
you go to the cinema. Before
But
you go
I'm
see
sure
it.
there are
bus ads.
I'm sure there is a whole like tranche of people now who know Kevin Bacon solely as the
EE
EE
ads.
guy. If
Yeah.
you said, Footloose, X-Men, last night,
EE.
like the EE guy. He used to be an actor.
I'm on EE and everything. I can't even talk.
He's the guy they make the joke about in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Oh wow, no.
Well, there you go, Kevin Bacon. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of Pulp Kitchen. Don't forget, we post a new episode of this show every single Wednesday.
And guys, you know the drill. We're on Instagram, we're on TikTok. Come see what other stuff's happening. And come look at the channel throughout the week as well. I know we put our main episode out,
Yep.
but loads of stuff happening. And write into us and give us a like, give us a subscribe. Hit that, star button on Spotify.
If you were listening, please just thank you for listening. But we also put this out on video. Please stop, go to your YouTube app and just go and subscribe to the YouTube, please. It
Yes.
makes such a big difference. Yes, that is everything.
Go
Oh yeah,
ahead.
and if you want to write into the show, like so many of you did this week, you can do by emailing hello@popkitchenpodcast. We love to hear your emails. That's all we have for today.
Yeah, go enjoy the rest of
watch
your week,
some
guys.
Kevin Bacon films.
Yes.